Bakersfield, California, 1978. A regional full-contact championship, standing room only. The kind of crowd that showed up specifically to watch one man, the undefeated regional champion, Marcus Vell, who hadn't lost a sanctioned match in 6 years and had the kind of personal mythology that made every event he entered feel less like a sports competition and more like a public ritual of dominance. Legend says that night, Vell did something nobody expected. He scanned the crowd after his third consecutive knockout of the evening, pointed directly at a quiet man seated alone in the back row, and said 2 words into the open microphone: "Get up." He'd done it before. He'd pick someone from the crowd, invite them into the ring, give them a free shot. Pure theater, a way to cement his legend. Nobody told him who the quiet man in the back row was. The story has been told in martial arts circles for 40 years. The people who were there agree on every detail except one: how long it actually lasted. Some say 10 seconds, some say 7. Nobody, in 4 decades of telling this story, has ever said it lasted as long as the champion expected.
Marcus Vell was not a complicated man. He was a complete one. 6 years undefeated, 41 wins, 29 knockouts, 9 of them in the first round. He fought out of a gym in Fresno, where the windows stayed open year-round because the fighters generated too much heat for the building to contain. His trainer, a former Navy man named Corso, had taken Vell's raw power and turned it into something with angles and timing and the specific, terrible precision that comes from 10,000 hours of doing the same things until they stop being movements and become instincts. Vell was 6'2", walked to the ring at 211 pounds, moved faster than he had any right to at that weight, which was the gift, the part that couldn't be taught or replicated or prepared for until you were already standing across from it. He was also, and this mattered on the night in question, deeply addicted to the crowd. Not in a weak way, not insecurity dressed up as confidence. Vell genuinely believed, and the record supported the belief, that he was something the sporting world only produced once a generation. He wasn't wrong. He'd simply conflated that truth with something adjacent to it, the idea that his skill made him invulnerable to everyone, not just other fighters, everyone. That's the distinction that matters. The crowd call routine had started 2 years earlier, after a 4th-round knockout of a visiting California state champion that left the arena in a specific, sustained roar that Vell had found more satisfying than anything he'd felt before or since. His manager had suggested it. After the main event, call someone up. A big guy, looks tough, obviously isn't. Let the crowd see the gap. Let them go home with something to tell. It had worked every time.
Chuck Norris had driven up from Los Angeles that afternoon, with no particular agenda. He wasn't there to compete, he wasn't scouting, he was a martial artist who enjoyed watching fighters, the same way a craftsman enjoys watching other craftsmen work, regardless of the specific trade. He'd heard about Vell through the circuit, wanted to see the footwork firsthand, and had bought the cheapest seat available, back row, aisle, and sat down alone with a cup of coffee he'd brought from a gas station. He was 38 years old, in the clothes he'd driven up in, dark jacket, plain shirt, nothing that announced itself as anything. By 1978, Norris had already won 6 consecutive world middleweight karate championships and was in the early stages of the film career that would make him globally recognizable within a few more years. On the karate circuit, his name was known to everyone serious. In a Bakersfield kickboxing arena on a Friday night, in civilian clothes in the back row, he was nobody. Vell looked right at him when he made the crowd call. He picked Norris specifically because the man looked calm. In Vell's experience, calm men from the back row made the routine more interesting than nervous ones. They walked to the ring with enough composure to seem like they might try something, which made the outcome funnier. He pointed. He said, "Get up."
Norris stood up. The crowd near him shifted. A few people recognized something in how he moved, the specific economy of a trained man's posture, the way serious practitioners carry their weight differently from civilians, even when they're doing nothing at all. 3 people in the immediate section muttered to each other. One woman grabbed her companion's arm. Norris wasn't performing. He wasn't showing anything. He was simply walking toward the ring the way he walked everywhere, and it was enough. The ring announcer leaned toward Vell's manager at ringside and said something that got lost in the crowd noise. The manager shrugged. He hadn't recognized anyone either. Vell watched the man come down the aisle. The grin on his face changed texture somewhere around the halfway point, not disappearing, just doing something new under its surface, the way a confident expression sometimes does when the body starts receiving information the mind hasn't processed yet. The quiet man moved wrong for a civilian. The angles were too clean. The posture was too settled. Vel had been reading bodies professionally for 6 years, and the body coming down that aisle was reading as something he hadn't specifically accounted for. He pushed the feeling down. He kept grinning.
Norris climbed the ring steps, didn't use the corner, came up the center steps, which was the wrong protocol for a volunteer. Volunteers used the corner steps. The detail was small enough that half the crowd didn't notice. The other half noticed and said nothing. Vel extended his hand for the standard theatrical handshake. Norris took it. Later, Vel would describe the handshake as the moment he knew. Not that he knew who Norris was, he still didn't, but that the routine had become something different. The handshake of a man who has shaken hands before fights was distinguishable, apparently, from the handshake of a man who has never been in one. Vel had been shaking fighters' hands for 6 years. He'd just shaken one. The crowd was at full noise. The ring announcer had made a joke about the volunteers' bravery that got a reasonable laugh. Everything felt like it was proceeding normally. Then Vel did the standard crowd call move, dropped his guard, stepped back, spread his hands wide, open chest, open jaw, the theatrical offering of a target to someone who, the routine assumed, couldn't meaningfully threaten it. Norris looked at the open guard. He looked at Vel's face. He said something, quiet, not into the microphone, just between them. Accounts differ on the exact words, but the surviving versions all agree on the shape of it. He asked whether Vel was absolutely certain he wanted this to happen. Vel laughed. The crowd, reading the body language without hearing the words, laughed too. Norris nodded once.
1. Norris shifted his weight. It was the only visible preparation. No stance, no raised guard, just a small internal reorganization of where his center of gravity sat, a change so subtle that most of the crowd didn't register it at all. 2. He stepped, not forward, slightly lateral toward Vel's open left side, into the angle that a dropped guard creates without the fighter realizing the geometry has changed. 3. Vel's body registered the movement and started sending signals upward, close, too close, something about the angle is wrong. But the signals were traveling through 6 years of muscle memory trained for fighters, and this wasn't reading as a fighter. The delay cost him. 4. A single strike, short, the kind of technique that doesn't look like much from the bleachers, no dramatic wind-up, no telegraphed commitment. Tang Soo Do's compact close-range mechanics, generating force through structural alignment rather than visible motion, landing at the precise intersection of Vel's open guard and the half-second window his delayed response had left. 5. The sound was wrong, not the sharp crack of a full-power shot, something denser. The crowd in the front rows heard it and went still before they understood why. 6. Vel's legs disagreed with the rest of him. They made the independent decision to find a lower altitude. Not a collapse, more of an involuntary renegotiation. He grabbed the top rope with one hand, not for show, because the rope was the nearest structural element available. 7. The arena was completely silent for the first time all night. Vel stayed at the rope. He didn't fall. Let's be precise, because the legend is precise. He did not go down. He held the rope and kept his feet and spent approximately 5 full seconds in a private conversation with his own nervous system about what had just happened to it. When he straightened up, the crowd was still silent. He looked at the quiet man from the back row, who was standing in the same position he'd been in before the strike. No expression of triumph, no acknowledgement of the crowd, nothing performing. Vel said, "Who are you?"
And from somewhere in the first 10 rows, loud enough to carry through the silence, an older man's voice answered for him. 2 words. The name rippled outward from that voice through 2,000 people, in the specific way a name ripples when it explains something confusing that just happened, quickly, totally, with a collective exhale at the end. Norris left the ring the same way he'd entered. No celebration, no acknowledgement of the crowd, which had found its voice again and was using all of it. He descended the center steps, moved back up the aisle, and was out the back exit before the ring announcer had found words for what he was supposed to say next. Nobody filmed it clearly. The event's camera crew had been set up for the scheduled bouts, not for the crowd call routine, and the one camera that had half caught it was at the wrong angle, too far, aimed at the ring's far corner. What survived on tape was a blur at movement, and then the rope grab, and then Vel's face, which told the story more completely than any clear footage would have. Vel sat in the locker room for 20 minutes before his manager came in. The manager said nothing immediately. Neither did Vel. Eventually, the manager said, "You know who that was?" "Yeah," Vel said. He'd been told by the time he left the ring. "I know." He didn't fight again for 4 months. His record said he won his next match, which was true. His trainer Corso later said the 4 months were the most productive training period of Vel's career, that whatever had happened on that rope had reset something in how he understood his own system and its limits. Whether that's true or just the legend smoothing out the rougher version, nobody can say for certain.
The story that circulated through the California martial arts and kickboxing circuits over the following years became, eventually, a parable with a fixed ending and variable details. Some versions said it was a single kick, some said a palm strike. The time varied between 5 and 12 seconds, depending on who was telling it. The location occasionally migrated to Stockton or Fresno, but the core never changed. A champion who thought he was untouchable pointed at the wrong man, and the wrong man stood up, walked to the ring in civilian clothes, and demonstrated in less than 10 seconds, without malice, without performance, the specific and irreducible difference between a man who has trained in public his entire career and a man who has trained in private for 20 years. Whether every detail of this particular night is perfectly accurate, nobody alive can say. But the story has survived because the truth inside it is accurate. It survived because every serious martial artist who has heard it recognized immediately, in the body, not just the mind, exactly what it described. Real skill doesn't sit in the front row. It doesn't need to be seen. It waits in the Mac, drinks gas station coffee, and gets up when someone points at it. And then it goes home. If you want more legends like this, the stories that never made the evening news but got told in every serious dojo from here to Osaka, subscribe. More are coming, and they all end the same way, quietly and faster than expected.